in one corner, weighing in on the wonderful absurdity of masked wrestling superhero spies and over-the-top campy tropes. Hailing originally from Southern California and now dwelling in Nashville, Tennessee, wearing an orange mask with a graying skunk-striped beard, Luchador Gringo! And in the other corner, weighing in on wrestling werewolves, violent vampires, and karate-chopping killer robots, from St. Paul, Minnesota, wearing a white mask and black hat with a pearly beard of ivory, El Mayo! Get ready for Luchador Gringo and El Mayo, a Lucha Libre Cinema podcast.
Hey there, welcome to third episode of Luchador Gringo and El Mayo. Michael, they said this podcast would not last.
Well, they might still be right, but so far so good.
That is why we are finally officially bringing on guests, and we have our first guest for this podcast, and that is artist and author Jay Gonzo. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
When I heard that your collected trade was coming out of La Mano del Destino, just as we started this podcast, I said, well, I think we've got our first guest lined up. And so, I jumped on getting a hold of you, and I'm so glad you're able to come out. Now, your book came out last week, correct?
Yep. Yeah, on the 19th of May.
Okay, and this was previously published material, but it's all collected in a beautiful, beautiful trade, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I designed that, so I can take full credit for that. Yes, thank you.
For our listeners who might not be familiar with the book, give us a little background on it.
Okay. I mean, you want like the historical context or the story breakdown or both?
Well, we're going to hit both, so whichever one you want to roll off first.
So it is. Well, I'll just do the story first. So it's my my elevator pitch. So La Mano del Destino is the story of a once champion luchador who is betrayed by his friends and unmasked in the ring, and so he in the depths of his despair, he is met by a mysterious promoter. And he makes a deal with this mysterious promoter to get a new identity, that of La Mano del Destino, and a new power, a new kind of like unspecified mysterious power to exact his revenge. But like all good comic book bargains, there's strings attached. So he is trying to get out of the deal, still get his revenge, but also more importantly, and most importantly, remain the person that he knows himself to be. And it all happens in a very kind of swanky jet age Mexico, where like lucha libre is the most important thing that happens in that world. Like any dispute of any kind is settled by luchador versus luchador, so it is like intrinsically woven into the fabric of that society. And it also has a swanky modernism of like mid-century America, or of like mid-century, I guess, North America. It has like a Silver Age look and feel to everything that permeates the storytelling, the art style, all of that.
Yeah, one thing I love about this trade is, I mean, besides the story and the beautiful art that you had in it, was you put a lot of bonus material at the back, the behind the mask aspect of it, talking about the history of it, the design, set it up. I mean, and you cover everything from character design to the colors that you chose.
I really wanted, I just kind of wanted to answer all the questions I usually get at cons and stuff. I know what people I've been doing this for 10 years, so I've done a lot of shows, and there's a commonality to people what people want to talk about, and so I wanted to. And at a show, it's kind of hard to blow through my color palette selection or something. So I really wanted to expand and expound on all of those things that I know people are interested in, or I've people have asked me questions about. And I also kind of built it in a way that it's all the stuff I would want to see from artists that I like. I don't know. I'm always a little bummed when back matter is just the script printed out, maybe with some notes on it. I'm like, that's kind of weak sauce, man. I know, but I've also seen better back matters that have really captivated me, and I just kind of leaned into what those were and put in there what I wanted to see.
Since we're talking about the design and the style of it right now,
yeah.
And were there some specifics that inspired you for this look of this book and the feel, the time period feel?
Well, I just felt so much to the I guess, which is I'm trying to think of the apropos of your show. to me, like I wanted the story to be about luchadors and lucha libre, and to me the heyday of the luchadors is that like 60s kind of era where they were out making films and like on, they had toys and comic books and all that stuff. So that's like as big as they ever got. So I kind of knew I wanted to set it in the 60s. And then I was actually reading the back matter of the collected edition of New Frontier. And it's a story that's set like in the 50s, and Darwin Cook talks about his art process. And there was a point at which he was thinking about doing it in a Kirby style, like in a Silver Age Kirby style. And he has like some concept drawings of the stuff he wanted to do with New Frontier. Like I think there's a Superman drawing for sure, and a couple other drawings of like this Kirby style he was trying to emulate. And it kind of clicked with me like, oh, I should do that. Like if my story's set in the 60s, it should look like it came out of the 60s. Like I wanted it to like be an artifact from a time that kind of never existed. And so at that point, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to make this look as much like a 60s comic book as possible. And the not only the art style, but the narrative kind of ethos of the 60s, kind of like bombastic, operatic melodrama that is 60s comic books, really lends itself to like the narrative or kind of, the meta-narrative stuff that was going on with the Lucha Libre movies that were happening in Mexico in the 60s. And so they all kind of like married well into the kind of story I wanted to tell. And so I just decided to lean hard into like, oh yeah, I'm going to make this look like not only was it drawn in the 60s, but it was printed in the 60s as well. Like I want all the imperfections and the kind of limitations of 60s reproduction, I guess it's direct plate, so it's a flexography kind of up from that time. And and just what's funny is like making that art style like look that kind of rough is harder to do than if I just try to make it look super clean and modern.
You worked on a specific color palette.
Yes.
Like 4 colors maybe?
Well, I think there's 12 total colors, but 3 of them only exist for La Mano. Like I wanted there to be like a kind of color signature to my main character, so you only ever see that chartreuse, that magenta, and that really kind of like robin's egg blue. Those only ever exist when La Mano's like present, just to kind of set him aside from the world that he lives in. I mean, it complements the other colors, but I literally picked those colors first and then built the entire rest of the palette around what complements those and will support those for the rest of the world. And then I really wanted to have that limited color palette that, I think when they were still cutting amberlith and stuff, you could only get like 24 colors, I think, or maybe 26 colors. Just because it was just the 4 color values, and then you could have 25%, 50%, 75%, or 100%, and so whatever that math works out to. But I wanted to even cut it back even further than that and just make it, make it more of a curated reality, just a kind of admission that this is a narrative, that this is a story. I often quote, I think it's John Updike who said that all art carries with it a need to confess its artifice. And I wanted to make that confession of artifice kind of like upfront, like this is made up, this is a story, and then I'm kind of unburdened from any kind of fidelity to realism. I can just be a story now, and the emotional truth of it can carry through as opposed to any kind of like literal truth that they're trying to like reconcile with the reality that the reader might understand.
Yeah. Now the reason I bring that up is your dedication to this sort of style and choosing this palette and working this way was. I mean, it was definitely a tool used to, as you just said, to tell your story. And I mean, I've been in the comic book industry for 20 some odd years. I've, put out my own books just like you, with this. I've, worked in the professional end with, big license material. And I got to tell you, I mean, Star Trek books that I've worked on have not gone into this much detail and given this much care about the look or the reasons behind the look, which really makes this book stand out more and make it even more beautiful. Not just to look at, but just to be wrapped around in the feeling of it.
Well, I mean, it is first and foremost, the book itself is a love letter. It's like my love letter to Lucha Libre. It's my love letter to Silver Age comic books, and it's a love letter to my Chicano heritage. It was important to me that I get all of those things right, because there's fans of all 3 of those kind of areas, and they've been done wrong for a lot, in a lot of areas. So and honestly, I feel like, authenticity is like the new commodity now. Like you can smell a money grab from a mile away. So, and if I only do one comic, I want it to be the thing I want it, I want. Like I'm not going to, I'm just going to kind of do this thing that I know will sell so that I get to do my dream project later. I just jumped right to my dream project. I'm like, I'm going to swing for the fences here and just do the thing that I want it to be. And so, yeah, it was just, it all had to feel right to me. I had to love every bit of it. And I think, people, that's what they respond to when they see it. Like, you can't, it's intangible, but you feel it on a visceral level, so much so that it just seems inevitable, right? But yeah, that was, there's a lot of my heart and soul and blood, sweat, and tears in that book, but all of it's a labor of love. The decade I spent working on it was all to make something that I loved at the end of the day. Sorry for the siren going by.
Oh, no worries. Okay. Yeah. And again, this does not, as much as I would love to see a La Mano del Destino movie, this does not come across as, this is my pitch.
Oh, yeah.
This is,
I definitely, so it was a reaction to a lot of things that I don't like about a lot of different mediums. It was the dusty brown that they seem to cast Mexico in every time you see it in an American movie. It was the need to make luchadors do something other than be wrestlers. Every time you see a luchador in an American movie, he's only ostensibly a luchador. He has a mask on, but he's like a hitman or a detective or something. I just was looking to kind of like push back against that. And a lot of comic books lately have kind of like started apologizing for being comic books. They try to get like as real worldly as possible and kind of muted tones and this. I just think comics should be more fantastical than that and take advantage of the medium and be bright and outlandish as much as possible. And so I just pushed back on that in such a way. And I really wanted my comic book to do things that only a comic book could do. It's not my movie pitch. It's not my TV series pitch. It's me, engaging with the medium on a way that can only be engaged with that medium. Like, I don't know, can we swear on your show? Do you guys swear on your show?
Sure.
Okay. So I always say that I make comic book ass comic books. Like,
okay.
That's my MO right there. And I think that not a lot of people are. And I think people who enjoyed in the 60s or in 70s and even in the 80s when people were still making comic book ass comic books, like, I feel like those are the people who enjoy my book. They're like, oh yeah, comics were fun. I can get into this.
No, and you're preaching to the choir here because Michael did a book. I don't think our listeners even know about your book, Michael.
It's a secret.
Okay.
It's not a secret. I've got it sitting on my bookshelf and I've seen it on sale everywhere.
I wrote a graphic novel called Kill All Monsters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Jason Copeland's the artist on it. But giant robots, giant monsters. It's very comic booky.
Yeah, it's unlimited budget. It's unlimited special effects. Like, you can do whatever you can think of, and it is also kind of free from any kind of realism that a movie would put on you. Like, you don't have to make it look like the real thing. You know what I mean? Like, every time you see the Fantastic Car in a Kirby comic, like, that thing soars. But the second you have to like have the prop department put bolts on a thing, then it's just going to fall from the sky, right?
Right.
Yeah, and then the book that I did, Hero Happy Hour, was basically a comic book that made fun of that various aspects. Comic books should be comic books. Let's make have fun with the tropes, have fun with that sort of stuff. Now, speaking of tropes, and you said you sort of you had been less than pleased with how luchadors have been perceived in media. And this is, I've always known luchadors are out there. But they're, again, being the Grigo that I am, it's been, luchadors have been the muscles and the mask and all that sort of stuff. And in researching this project that I want to do, I fell in love with the Luchaverse. I fell in love with this, and I'm talking about stuff like Santo and Blue Demon and the mystique and the magic, and why did you feel that? I mean, it was important to reiterate that.
Because of how fun those movies are, because they're unapologetically melodramatic and over the top, and I think in an effort to in like a weird internalized respectability politic kind of way, in an effort to like legitimize lucha libre, they had to make it like grim and gritty, or put some kind of a spin on it when they were kind of perfect to begin with. I just I can't tell you how many. I'm trying to think. I think what really set me off was that Image comic called Lucha Libre that was just, it was like some French artist from Canada was doing it, and it was a book about luchadors, and they were like a punchline. They were like these slovenly, lazy kind of dudes who were only like accidentally fell into like whatever action they had to get into, and it was just Yeah, I mean, it was a slap in the face to me for a guy who had considered these guys heroes, in my youth, like, El Santo is my Superman, and for these guys to be kind of like winking at the audience with them was just uncool, and so that's kind of when I started, like that whole book. It's like they don't ever get in the ring. I think they had maybe have some flashbacks for when they used to wrestle, and that was about it. And I was just like, why is it always an apology? Why do we have to have like a once, a guy who used to be a luchador now doing something else? Like why does that something else need to exist? Why can't they have why can't they do both? And why isn't the wrestling important? And as a wrestling fan overall, I think that that's something that there's a silliness to it. And I think that if you want to try to be mainstream or successful, I guess whatever that means, like you have to apologize for that silliness to a degree. And I just reject that, soundly. Like no, that's not how it be. Like I need to lean into the silliness. I need this to be as ridiculous as not as possible. And I'm not trying to like be slapsticky just to make some kind of point. But I'm like the weirdness of it all, and the accepted weirdness, the kind of like it just exists and is unexplained. That's what it needs. That's what these things should be. And that's what I leaned into.
No, and I agree. That's why like a Richard Donner Superman is so much better than a Zack Snyder Superman.
Oh, absolutely.
And the one thing that Lucha Libre movies should never get is a Snyder cut treatment.
Oh God, yeah.
They're exactly like you said, so much fun, and that is definitely part of the charm of it, warts and all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and just check your inner critic at the door. Like it doesn't mean like, just, this is a story, like enjoy the ride. Like, people, will talk about how something in a superhero movie is unrealistic, but they're watching, Game of Thrones. And I'm like, dragons also unrealistic. But because there's swearing and blood and boobs, like you're okay with like that unrealism. Like just go with the unrealness of it. Like the absurdity of it all, I'm just amazed at what people are willing to want to push through a realism lens, like Superman, right? Like, or Batman needing to use needing to use guns. Like, well, it's just unrealistic, like he would face down criminals without a gun. Like, it's unrealistic he would put on a bat suit and go face down criminals. And that the gun is where you're drawing the line? Okay, I think we're on the same page here. It's a conundrum, and I think that more people are willing to accept just silly ass stuff and have fun with it than Hollywood would give them credit for.
Now I'm jealous. Now, it sounds like you grew up watching these flicks.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I grew up in Southern California, just outside of LA County, like the ass end of Orange County, in the city of Cypress.
Hey, dude, I grew up in Huntington Beach.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, so you know where I'm at. So and where Cypress is too. And all of my family is. Did you go to Pacifica? Is that the high school out there, or did you go to Marina?
I went to Huntington Beach High.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
My friend taught there for a while. Yeah, I went to Cypress High. Anyway, neither here nor there. But all of my family is in my dad grew up in like Boyle Heights, and then like his family moved to like Pico Rivera, and then my mom's family is all in Montebello. So most of my childhood was kind of spent from Cypress into like East Los Angeles areas, and my grandparents would watch us for a while, and it's that kind of thing where the TV stations at your Nana's house just seem different than the ones at your house. It's like I realize I probably could have watched those El Santo movies at my house, but I didn't for whatever reason. But whenever I was at my grandparents' house, I would watch like Lucha Libre and Lucha Libre movies, and we would go to we would walk down to a little bodega there in Montebello, and it would just have like these little like El Santo and Blue Demon and El Solitario kind of toys just kind of hanging out, and they would have the like Lucha Libre color forms and all of that stuff. So it was just. They were just, and to me, they just seemed like tailor-made heroes to me. They seemed like, this is my culture's heroes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the like Superman and stuff, for lack of a better term, seem kind of like white people stuff to me. I mean, I did enjoy Batman, and Spider-Man's my guy. I mean, Spider-Man's the reason I draw comic books, but this just seemed more culturally resonant to me when I saw it, because they existed in places that kind of like only my family lived in, and like it wasn't out in Cypress, or if I headed into Huntington Beach or Anaheim or those places, it was kind of not quite there, maybe right. Santa Ana, but it definitely was like in full force once you got across the San Gabriel and into East Los Angeles. And I loved it, man. I don't like, I speak very little Spanish, so I don't really understand anything that was going on. But I would watch the hell out of those movies without knowing what was going on. And you really kind of don't need to speak Spanish to watch those movies.
No, yeah, exactly. And you bring up El Santo, and he is by far. I mean, now that I'm getting into this universe and into these films, I've tried to explain him to people who are completely unaware of him, and I explain him in the best possible way is he's like Batman and Elvis combined. The best parts of both of those.
Well, the great thing about El Santo was like a multimedia icon in Mexico, and so he existed. The kayfabe version of him, the Man in the Mask, existed well beyond the ring, and that's the kind of cool performance art part of lucha libre or wrestling in general. Is that you're asked to suspend? Well, there's kind of like a suspension of disbelief when you go in there, but they're still physically doing things. They're you can't fake a lot of diving from the onto the apron from the inside of the ring or off the top rope and into the crowd. Like you're still really doing those things, but the motivations and kind of storyline is a little bit contrived to a degree, but still the identity that they've assumed extends beyond the ring. So they don't. There's no need to suspend disbelief that like Rodolfo Huerta Guzman was El Santo, and so he's Rodolfo when he's out in the world, but then he's El Santo when he's in the ring. Like he just was El Santo everywhere he went. Even so much when he goes into the movies, he's not El Santo playing some other character. He's just El Santo. Although I think he did make 2 movies initially where he is just kind of like the bodyguard to some other hero.
Yeah.
But he still was El Santo. Like it was still him in the silver mask. So it just there is, it's Batman without the Bruce Wayne, right? Like, or Superman without the Clark Kent. He is only the thing, and without it, he's nobody. He's just anonymous. When the mask comes off, who his family sees is almost irrelevant to the idea of what El Santo was. And they had like toys and comic books and comic strips, and those comic books in Mexico. Sorry if I'm talking too much.
Oh no, please.
So the comic books in Mexico had I think they were running like 3 million of them weekly, and these El Santo, the Jorge Cruz version of him. And Jorge Cruz is a whole rabbit hole you can go down because that guy was super shady. But they would do these El Santo comics, and they were almost fumetti, where El Santo would go in and they would take just a series of different photos of him in different poses. And unlike fumetti, where they would just put the photos in and then letter them, they actually would just cut out the pose he was in and then draw in the rest, where he's like fighting werewolves or mummies or whatever. And so you can see in those comic books there's like a little number in the bottom of each panel where they know which number pose that is. But anyway, those comics would come out, a bunch of kids, the 3 million kids who bought the print run would buy them. But in Mexico, you could bring your comic back and get credit for another comic book, and then someone could buy the used one and then bring it back and get credit for one. And so it was almost more of a lending system. So the initial person who bought it paid full cover price, but then they could buy, they would sell it back. And so, those would get handed back and forth like 3 to 6 times. And so we're talking 3 million print runs times 6, people seeing them. That's how many people were reading about El Santo weekly, and I think at one point they got down to twice a week, which is just astronomical. Like it's incomprehensible to today's comic market that many people were reading these El Santo stories. And so to say that he was, he was probably bigger than Elvis. I mean, just numbers wise, he was probably bigger than Elvis.
But he was a superhero, which made it better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Well, Elvis did have a cape, I'll give him that. I mean, he wanted, didn't Elvis want to be Captain Marvel Jr.? Wasn't that the reason he had the capes and stuff? Like he had an
That's
affection?
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But so I mean, in terms of popularity in Mexico, it is a level of notoriety that I don't think that even the likes of like Elvis or Michael Jackson or the Beatles. I mean, grandparents, kids, moms, like it just everybody loved El Santo in a way that our demographic kind of boundaries would preclude in America. I think even in the 60s, I can't think of a phenomenon in America that it's even comparable to. So yeah, bigger than Elvis, I would say.
And he was just a good guy.
Yeah.
I mean, in the ring and then in person and in the movies, there was no,
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of good guy. I mean, that's the thing that I really wanted to emulate with La Mano del Destino was like he is committed to the right thing, regardless of what that means for him personally. But he has a faith in the goodness. He has faith in goodness itself as an idea, and that, I mean, it's like what gets him betrayed, but it's also what kind of leads to his redemption arc and kind of really discovering what that means and how he internalizes that. And so, I definitely like. There's a great line in this movie. I don't know how much you want to get into it, where they say that there is no better ally of justice than El Santo, and that's what I wanted Lamano to be as well.
Oh, no, I agree. And I think my favorite line from the movie was he's a legend, a chimera. He embodies the greatness, things, justice, and goodness. That is Santo, the Silver Mask. And,
I mean,
it's a total Lone Ranger moment. Who was that masked man at the end of this movie? Okay, let's move into the movie.
All right, let's do this. Yeah, for sure.
The movie that we watched this time around was El Santo Contra los Zombies. Mm-hmm. And this, like you mentioned, he was like in two other movies before that, but he really didn't play El Santo. He was just the man in the mask, working for the cops or whatever. But this one, it's established that he's a superhero and a wrestler. And this is pretty much the movie that started. He was a huge figure in Lucha Libre before this movie, but this is what started his movie stardom, his greatness, I would guess, right?
Yeah. I think this takes him into superstardom, right?
Yeah.
Like this goes from like being a cultural phenomenon, like a wrestler, because he's been wrestling since he was 17, and this is 1961. They're filming this, so he's 44, I think, when this movie comes out, or he's about 44 when this movie happens. So he's been wrestling for a good, almost 3 decades, a good 20 plus years at this point. So he's got that notoriety, and I think that was part of what got him into movies. But he never really, I think, from what I understand, he kind of didn't want to do movies for a while. Like, he thought that it would take away from his wrestling, and much to his good guy nature, he's like, no, I have wrestling fans I need to be there for. I'm going to wrestle. And then at some point they made it easy for him to do both movies and wrestling. And so that's what, this is the first starring role after I think he has a kind of trial run with those first 2 movies where he's like, oh, I can do this. And then he jumps into like, okay, I'll be the star of your movie now.
So the gist of this movie is a scientist professor has returned from Haiti about ready to publish a book about voodoo and zombies, I guess. And then he disappears. And so, like in a lot of these Lucha Libre movies, there's this mysterious police force that are going to get to work to crack the case. Now, I like in this movie, and Michael, maybe you kind of caught it too. I mean, they're kind of like the Scooby-Doo kids in a way. This band of this trio of detectives, so to speak. It's almost like 2 movies. It's this detective movie with a Kolchak kind of flair to it, and it's also the Santo superhero movie.
Yeah, they start off with El Santo wrestling, like that establishes it, and then they cut to the Scooby-Doo gang, and I think in that first match you don't, like in the one before the credits come up, which I got to say, the font on that hand lettering in the credits at the beginning of this is superb, man. I think I'm going to go back and do some screen caps and maybe make a font out of it, but it is excellent. Yeah, the way they frame that shot where El Santo's being held up, his hands being held up in victory.
Yeah.
And there's like all that screen to the right of him, so you can just get all the credits coming up there. I mean, from the credits, this movie's brilliant. I mean, and they also build the wrestlers that are in this movie. They just build them as a wrestling name. Like nobody,
right?
It's not their real name. It's all their kayfabe, like their character, their gimmick names. So, that first scene though, the guy who's the fanboy, is it Ricardo? Is he the one who's?
I think
who's
so.
The fanboy? Yeah. He's not in that very first one before the credits start, is he? Or you don't see him?
I can't remember.
But I do like the idea that guy. I think the only reason El Santo is mixed up with this mysterious police force is because that guy's a fanboy. He's like, oh, this is a job for El Santo, and I'm pretty sure at some meeting they're going to be like, we don't need El Santo for this one. Can we just find the missing? Because they don't involve him in the missing persons one. They involve El Santo in the zombie jewel heist, right?
Jewel heist, yeah.
Yes, that's what piques his curiosity. So the missing professor, all of that plot setup happens outside his purview, correct?
Yeah, but with outside of his, now it appears that he and the black hooded villain both have this great machine which takes, meta. I
Oh,
call it
they can watch the movie.
They could watch the movie and see what's going on. Like Santo watches it and sees that they're off to kidnap kids at the orphanage, as zombies tend to do.
Yeah.
Or
kidnap / burn kids. And I gotta say, the lack of concern for fire in this movie is disconcerting. The entire movie. But sorry, we're jumping way to the middle of this.
Yeah. So they meet the professor's
daughter, Gloria.
And her uncle and his carekeeper.
Friday, right?
Yeah. Which is, who lost his sight in a mining accident.
Yep.
And they somehow, at what point do they tie it in with the jewelry heist?
So hold on a sec. So they hire, Gloria goes to the detectives, and she's like, my father's missing, and like, oh, maybe he just went back to, like, no, he's missing, and they try to patriarch her a bit, and then they're like, okay, well, maybe he is actually missing. So they go back to his house to go through his notes.
Disguised as students.
Yeah. Well, you see this, but Gloria doesn't know. She's like kind of slow on the uptake. She's like, oh, why did you say you were students? And because I think they're suspicious of the uncle and his man Friday there.
So was I.
Roger, right? I think his name is Roger. And then I don't know about your dub, but they call in the dub that I saw in the subtitles. I'm sorry, the sub. They call him like Rutherford, right? It's Gloria Rutherford.
Yeah.
But if you listen to it, like their last name is Sandoval. Like
I caught that too. Yeah.
Yeah. They do that a couple of times where people have like one last name and you can clearly hear them saying Sandoval, but they're like, oh, Rutherford keeps coming up. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. Yeah. So they do that and then I think the jewel heist just happens, right? Like we just see the jewel heist. Like it hasn't been tied back to them. Like they go asking some questions here and there. And then we just cut to the jewel heist?
Yeah.
Like, I don't get tied up initially.
Are these lumbering... They appear to be in a trance wearing Peter Pan outfits.
They look like... They're dressed like... this is what I saw it as. They're dressed like the dwarves from Snow White and the Seven Dwarves.
Right. Like they just came from some Renaissance fair.
Yeah, exactly. It's like tights and like a sleeveless shirt that has laces in the front, like all of the Renaissance fair, but then they've got their Darth Vader belt around it that controls them. It makes it more of like their shirt, more like a tunic than an actual shirt.
And apparently it's these belts that are controlling them. But when I was first watching this, I'm like, oh, they mean zombies as in just mindless drones. But no, they are actual dead people, because when the cops show up, they said, no, we killed that guy, we killed that guy, we killed that guy.
Yep.
But and also their choice of weapons is
that little
the crowbar.
Weird, the crowbar / arc welder that they have. But they do a good job of showing you that the zombies don't feel pain, because when they first go to the jewelry store, they weld open that lock, and the guy just grabs the lock like a second later that they just melted.
Yeah. And then that one, it looks like they spent all their bullet special effects on that one scene where he gets shot in the forehead.
Oh, that is brilliant. I like that. There's a couple of really good shots in that, and that. Selling that, like, because at first you might just think these guys are thugs. I mean, granted, the movie is called Versus Los Zombies, so you kind of know there's going to be zombies. But these guys could just be the muscle for the actual zombies or working with it. Like, you don't know, but they sell that really well when you just point blank shoots the dude in the head and he doesn't even slow down.
Yeah.
Like, oh, these are what these zombies look like.
And then the guard there, or even later when other cops come across these zombies, I love how they'll empty their guns shooting them.
Yeah.
But that's not working, so then they decide maybe pistol whipping.
Yeah, maybe I'll put my hands on this guy because I couldn't stop him with a 38 slug to his forehead. But and in the zombies, I gotta love the conservation of movement in these zombies is fantastic, because they just straight up karate chop them or judo chop them side of the neck and they go down. They're not looking to like wrestle with no security guard. They're like, nope, you're down, boom, for the count.
So after this this jewelry heist, I guess the trio of kid detectives, they're not really kids, but they're they look like they're young on the force, go to visit a former fence. Oh yeah. Well, wait.
So hold on a sec. Does Santo show up at the jewelry heist? No, because they call him in afterward. Because the other two like security guard who also have guns like cops, but are a private security firm. They show up. They also shoot the zombies. The zombies grenade their car and then drive off. Like, that's a great moment, too, when the zombie's holding the grenade and he looks for approval from the other two zombies. Like, grenade? Yeah. And they're like, yeah. They both give him the kind of, like, half nod, like, yeah, buddy, grenade, for sure. And then he blows their car up. Then they go back to the cops, and they're like, yo, it was, like, some dead guys. Like, that was a guy I knew who had been dead. And they're like, really? Like, I think maybe you just shot at them. Like, no, I put one in his forehead. And then they cut to, is that when we get to the shakedown? I'm trying to think. No, I think, isn't that when we cut to a El Santo match, right? Isn't that when?
Yeah, that's when Rodriguez, decides he's going to ask Santo for help because he's not only a wrestler, he's kind of a crime fighter.
Yeah, well, he's at the match, and that's when the other two go get him before they get him on the case, because I think they hadn't they already met with Gloria, and then they pick him up? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I've watched it like 3 times, and it's, one thing these movies have in common is they just kind of happen.
Yeah, and then the police chief, who never leaves his office, except at the end, he calls El Santo on the radio, and that's when we establish that El Santo can see who's on the radio.
Yeah, that he has a laboratory full of, like, like a Batcave type of situation that, in his spare room, like most of us have offices.
Yeah, he's got the thing, and there's a lot of, like, even though he could hear the call coming in, there's a lot more dial flipping that has to happen before he can actually see the cop in his office. And then I think we cut to the black guy and the hood guy, all white with the black hood, which is a great look. Like, that outfit is phenomenal. It's like Space Ghost almost. Like, it's just this all white outfit with the black hood. Super
and I love
iconic.
How he has to keep adjusting his hood so he can see out of those 2 poorly cut eyes holes.
Yeah, exactly. Scarecrow eyes that he cut in there. But he's clearly spent all of his costuming time on his belt.
Yes.
And not on his. That belt is great. And his wall of gizmos is so fantastic. It's got those kind of Tesla coils that have the little lightning bolt detail at the top of them, where the bolts actually go between. Yeah, I mean, and for the listeners, this isn't like yes, there is the lightning of the Tesla coils, but there's also emblematically like Grateful Dead Still Your Face kind of, like that kind of Grateful Dead lightning bolt kind of as an emblem at the top where the sparks are, as if the sparks weren't enough.
As if the production designer went, this needs one more thing.
Yeah, exactly. And but his little wall of toggle switches is pretty. It's every time I see it, I just smiled because I think whoever that actor was, he had a system down because he never flips the same one twice. He makes a different thing happen with different toggle switches each time.
Yeah, I bought into that each different toggle switch controlled a different zombie.
Yep.
Shortly after that point is when we get it. They go to the club and we get no luchador movie would be complete without a dance number.
Oh yeah, that girl. They have like I want to say. At first I thought it was going to be like a Haitian joint, right? Because it's all probably Haitians, possibly African Mexicans to some degree. Black Mexicans are there, and then the girl dancing, the woman dancing is a smoke show. She is gorgeous and in a great outfit. However, she cannot dance, and they cannot film her dancing. It is really disappointing in a lot of ways because she's beautiful and that outfit is fantastic, but she dances poorly and they film it even worse.
So they meet with this, and this guy he's like the fence, and he's like a reject from Rick's Cafe from Casablanca. Yeah. And he knows nothing.
Well, they shake him down, like they catch him. They put him in a situation where they know he can admit that he's not, he's playing the I'm reformed game, and they hit him with the he accidentally says robbery when they haven't mentioned robberies yet, and I love that they don't point it out. They don't go, oh, we never said robbery, or he just almost says robbery, and they look at him, and everyone knows what just happened, and so he has to kind of cop to the fact that all right, I'll keep my eye out for you guys.
And then it's after this point that we haven't seen Santo enough. Is this when he has to rescue the orphanage?
I think, didn't they take Gloria to watch his match? Like, oh, this is El Santo, and then they're like, oh, we'll talk to him after, and they don't talk to him after.
Right.
They're just out doing other things. And then, hold on a sec, let me see. I have notes. Oh yeah. So after after the fence. I like when he when he accommodates them, he just boots people off their table.
Yeah.
Like he said here, he just gives those people like get the hell out of here. That was a baller move. That was real nice. To show that he's a scumbag, but also this is his joint. He can do whatever he wants. And then after the shakedown, the black hooded guy's like, I need some kids. And so where do you go shopping for kids?
Orphanage.
At an orphanage. Yeah.
Now,
and
they never explain why fire pops up whenever through any doorway or window when zombies go through.
They're not big on the front door. They use a lot of windows in all of this. It even gets to the point where El Santo starts using the window because so we'll get to that. The orphanage. I can only assume that when they were using their little torches to get in that door, which was probably locked, it set the orphanage on fire.
Okay.
Again, nobody cares about it. I mean, the kids are more freaked out by the zombies. El Santo just blows right past the fire to save them from the zombies, and makes no effort to put the fire out the entire time he fights those guys, and then just leaves without putting that fire's never addressed. It's just in the background of the orphanage, happening the entire time. And then El Santo doesn't talk to anybody after he just beats some zombie ass in the both in the orphanage and out front of the orphanage, right? Because he's there, and the Scooby Gang shows up while he's fighting the zombies outside, while apparently the fire is raging inside that nobody's talking about.
Right, and Isabel stays in the car.
Yeah.
And the other two detective kids get beat up by the zombies, but then, so Santo gets knocked out, but he gets up in time to go chase after them because the zombies drive off.
Yep.
But the villain, the hooded villain watching the movie on his special screen, decides he's going to blow up their getaway car, and so they have no clues.
Dude, the way that guy ties up loose ends is pretty brutal. He is all about loose lip sync ships. Like, oh, does he know something? And Santo might talk to him. Yeah, kill him, kill them. And granted, these zombies are already dead, but that's when he picks up the torch. He finds the torch and says the fingerprinted as he's holding it in his bare hands.
Yeah, he's got his paws all over that thing.
And he hands it to barehanded detective and says, "Get this fingerprinted," and then bails. And then cut to, they found out who the fingerprints belong to. Like everyone in the past, 9 people who handled it, apparently without their gloves on, but they pick out the one criminal that they know is dead and they had been to his autopsy.
And so...
It just happened to be related to, the other guy that we already met, too,
right? They said that the next of kin who picked the body up was the Perot, or whatever his name is, the guy who owns the club.
Right.
So they go back to his club, and then, more loose ends are tied up.
I like how they took the time to hang him.
Yeah.
And should we look for clues? No, if they took the time to hang him, they took the time to clean up.
Yeah.
You guys are pros.
That was my favorite line of the movie.
That's some solid detective work there.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, obviously these guys are going to clean up after themselves because they staged a suicide. I don't know. But if you consider that guy might have killed himself because the cops came to his club and leaned on him and he just couldn't take it anymore. They're like, oh no, clearly this is loose ends being tied up. Yeah.
And then about this point, Santo has to save
Isabel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing too. It's like, was he just lurking outside her house? Because we do the whole scene of he gets dropped off, or she gets dropped off by her detective friend. He gives her the little radio, the microwave thing, and then says, he goes, hey, you can get a hold of me. She goes in, she's looking at the little microwave thing. Zombies come in the windows, because that's how zombies do in this movie. And then El Santo just bursts in because he's like, I'm driving by. I don't know what.
Or was he watching her on that creepy movie meta machine he has?
He was too close to have been at this place, see her being attacked, then get there. Because he's there like flies on shit, man. He's there like in a half second. Those zombies only have time to like pick her up and throw him over her shoulder. They can't get back out the window. Less than a minute has transpired, and he's there fighting zombies. And he whips a little zombie ass in that one, right? Is that the one where they
almost take his mask off?
Oh yeah, they go for his mask. And I love that the zombies know to go for his mask. Go for his weak spot, because they've got him down and immobile, but they're like, oh, his mask is coming off. Because I as a unthinking zombie, need to know what's under this mask.
Right. Let's shave him.
Are those the zombies that make themselves teleport away?
Yeah. Now all of a sudden they start teleporting, because now we're starting to learn that those belts that they wear.
Yeah, well, now I want to know, like, why were those other zombies driving? Do they just like to drive?
Why did they climb through a window?
Actually,
Could they just
so-
teleport?
Exactly.
Did they teleport or did they turn invisible? Because I thought teleport first, but then when the window opens by itself, I think, okay, I think they're
yeah.
just turning invisible.
Maybe they did turn invisible, but I just thought that was bad prop work, or they just, like, no one secured that window well enough.
Yeah, it's a little vague.
But also, if they could turn invisible, why didn't they beat on him when they were invisible? I think they teleported. Yeah, who knows? What it could be either. It's Schrodinger's zombies at this point.
So apparently this is when the bad guy realizes Santo's getting too close. So he's got to kill Santo, and he's going to kill him in the ring.
Yeah, and also, because El Santo now has knows that there's zombies trying to kill orphans and rob jewelry stores, because those are the two cases. He knows nothing about the missing persons at this point. Just trying to solve the jewelry and the motivation for stealing the jewelry. Like I realized the Black Hood guy goes through the jewelry and digs it. Never explained why he wants the jewelry and kids. So as far as Santo's concerned, at this point he's just trying to find someone or find the people behind the jewelry thief, almost the orphan thief, and then also someone who assaulted Isabel. He knows nothing about the missing persons, but even though all of this stuff is going down in his neighborhood, he's got a gig he has to make. He booked a show. He's got to go deliver and do the job. So he's got a thing, and that's when the evil scientist is like, oh, we know where he's going to be, and we know he's going to fight. So they go to Carmine from Laverne and Shirley's house. That wrestler is going to because he looked. Tell me that guy didn't look like Carmine from Laverne.
Oh no,
and Shirley.
totally, yeah.
Yeah. They go to his house, and the Bambino's there getting the shave on with his plug-in razor, and the zombies kidnap him. He gives a pretty good fight though. He puts up some struggle, and they shoot him full of zombie juice and put a belt on him, right?
Yeah, they put a belt on him, and so this is a classic trope that they use in a lot of these movies. Is he's pretty much a mind-controlled, tool or pawn to kill Santos.
And I do like it when they cut to the actual cut to the match. I really like that they show that it's best of 3, because Lucha Libre is usually best of 3 or best of 5. It's rarely a single fall match, or at least at this time, most Lucha Libre was best of 3, and they do call that. The announcer does make a case that this is going to be a best of 3 match. Zombie guy doesn't want to shake El Santo's hand. Apparently, El Santo's seen zombies now a couple of times. Doesn't put 2 and 2 together that this guy's zombified, and she's like, "Oh, he's just being a dick. I'm going to wrestle him anyway."
Well, the first episode we did this podcast, we watched Santo and Blue Demon versus the Monsters.
Yes,
and of course, Santo wrestles a vampire and doesn't realize he's a vampire.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Have you watched El Santo contra los mujeres vampiros, the versus the vampire women yet?
Not yet.
Okay, yeah. It's almost this exact same movie in that everything happens twice.
Uh-huh.
So there is a wrestling match, and then there's action where he wrestles some zombies out in a field. Another wrestling match, wrestles a vampire henchman out on a field. Yeah, I don't want to ruin it for you. I gotta say though, of all the El Santo movies, the climax of versus the vampire women is my absolute favorite. So once you've seen it, dude, email me and let me know what you think of the climax of that movie, because it's pretty right on.
Yeah, I got the DVD of that a couple weeks ago, so it's in the library and it's on the stack.
My personal favorite is that one. So yeah, let me know what you think. I'll listen to the episode when it comes out.
So he ends up defeating the zombie wrestler because
he goes for a weird. I don't know that he knew the belt was in there, but he was definitely grabbing around at this guy's trunks for some reason.
Yeah, it did look like a legal
I'm
move.
Intuition at this point, and I hope that's what was happening, because that's not a legal move in Lucha Libre. And they checked that guy before the match. They checked his hands, they checked his feet, like you do. Apparently, didn't notice the belt then.
No, yeah. So he takes care of that zombie, and then
once the guy explodes, or he starts smoldering.
Yeah, because I guess the villain was cranking up the juice too much.
Yeah. So he overheated his zombie.
Yeah, and what a painful place to overheat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was no other place for him to conceal the belt.
True.
He was just in trunks. But then El Santo decides to turn into a detective finally, and goes to check out Carmine's house, and goes in through the window, because there is no front door at that guy's house apparently. He just goes. But this is the best scene in the entire movie, is right here, is when El Santo goes in the window. We follow him from the window into the bathroom where the guy had been shaving. He starts to check out the razor, and then the camera pulls back, and the zombie's right behind him.
Yeah.
That shot is amazing. Like that kind of jump scare was fantastic.
And I love the interest that he had in that razor, almost as if he was sniffing it for a clue.
Well, I think that there's a little bit in this movie that starts to seem like electronics are allowing the zombies to zone in on people, right? Like, she had her little two-way microwave radio. Isabel did.
Yeah, okay. So because when he takes away the radio from her, he goes, "You don't need this anymore."
Yeah, exactly. Like there's almost like a distrust of technology in this movie that they only kind of hint at, but you get the fact despite El Santo's little Freudian slip there. Despite his big techie wall, he kind of almost comes across as a Luddite, Like, so he's inspecting to see if there's any homing beacon or something. Maybe that's what I was thinking when I saw it, and then just zombie right behind him, which was amazing. Like that shot, that reveal is fantastic.
All right, so at this point, Gloria's kidnapped, correct?
Yeah, because they make her call. They don't show, and that's what happened. That's right. They kidnap Gloria
because she's like driving around saying, "Don't worry, I'll come. I'll come to you."
Yeah, she's figured out the cipher, the code, right?
Yeah.
On the notes. So she's going to drive to the police captain. The zombies put a trap out for her. They put a log in the road and hide in a cave.
Because she has to take the a off-road path to Grandma's house to get to the police station.
Yeah, and they get her there, and then the hooded guy shows her that her dad is actually one of the zombies, and if he wants to see her, or she wants him back, she'll have to do what he says, and then she makes the phone call to the cop, who we never hear. He's like, say exactly what I tell you to say, and then we never hear what gets said to the cop. And then that's when we cut to El Santo looking at the razor and getting jumped by the two zombies there. That fight's actually really good because he kind of disposes one and goes to jump out the window, and then like right there's another zombie coming in to fight him again, and then he gets captured as well, right? Isn't that where he gets captured?
Does he get captured?
He gets like knocked out. Oh, that's right. They knock him out. They go to take his mask off, and then he kicks them.
Yeah.
He does it like the kick thing. Yeah, that's right. He almost gets captured. Like it looks like he's down for the count, but it was all a ruse. And then Gloria's been captured, and they're going to make her the first female zombie.
Yeah, they make a big deal about that being the first female zombie.
And then how does a Scooby? Because then
they find her abandoned car.
That's right, because they're just driving down the same road because they're obviously going to the police station. How does El Santo? How does he end up at the house? I don't remember how he finds out. Did he see it on his TV?
I think he must have seen it on his TV.
Yeah. But hold on, I'm looking at my notes here. I just have to say that one of my notes here is just this movie has got a lot of fire and a lot of moles, a lot more moles than you were expecting. So hold on. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. My notes get a little scant after this. Yeah, I don't remember how he ends up there, but they all end up. But the Scooby Gang's behind El Santo. Like he gets there first because he's digging in the fireplace, looking for secret passages.
Yeah, I love how as soon as he walks into this mansion, he just starts touching anything he can to find a secret door.
Yeah, he doesn't even bother looking in any rooms they might be in. Straight for the fire. Oh no, yeah. Like I know, well, obviously these guys are pros because they hung that guy, so they're not going to have him in just some room. Yeah, but he doesn't know that they hung that guy either. There's a lot of information transference that you're unsure how. Like these people saw that, but not this guy. How does he know? A lot of that happens in this movie. But
Santo does see all though.
He does find the secret through the fireplace, which I'm going to credit them for coming up with before Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade.
Oh yeah.
So Spielberg just ripped off Santo's movie right there.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure of it. Yeah, and he also just has a flashlight tucked in his belt at that point too, because once he gets in the cave, he just busts out the flashlight, which comes in handy in so many ways that I wasn't expecting.
And then he finds those two zombies just standing there because apparently their belts aren't activated.
Yeah, because the guy flipped almost all the switches. The hood guy, like the black hood, flips all the switches, and they all start getting in formation and their little torches on. And then he sends them out to catch the Scooby Gang.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they all go out because they know the Scooby Gang is coming.
But he's not going to turn on the two guards.
Yeah, the two guards are just there to be imposing, apparently. Like they're like the the Guardians of the West Gate on the Neverending Story, right? They're just sitting there staring at each other.
Yeah, doing their best Beefeater impersonation.
Yeah. I imagine if El Santo had touched the gate or something before he had short-circuited them, which he does with just a C-cell battery, just throws in their little torches. Also, he knew that the belts will kill them if he has to, if he takes them off. So I don't know why he didn't go for the belts. Oh, no, he takes their belt off after he shorts them out, right?
Yeah.
In a really poorly staged scene. If you came in just at that part in the movie, you'd be like, what kind of movie is this exactly?
Yeah, because he's down there, eye to crotch level, checking these guys out.
But the lighting on that is fantastic. They got that one slit of light that's just going across his eyes so you can see the reflectivity of his silver mask.
Yeah.
It's really lit well. There's a couple of scenes in here that are really, really lit well. Like when the one zombie comes around the darkened corner, like as soon as they cut over there, a little bit of light comes in on the side, and then a little bit of light comes in behind that one zombie, so he's all in silhouette coming around a corner. Yeah, the lighting, the director or the director of photography on this really had some really choice shots here.
The lighting on the eyes, I call that the Captain Kirk wisdom look.
Yes, exactly.
Whenever Captain Kirk figured something out, they'd have the shaft of light across his eyes.
Yeah.
So he finally gets in there, and he beats up the bad guys, who have to hold their poor mask on while they fight.
Yeah.
And classic...
There's a couple extras in that are not really selling it as well as they could have. For sure.
And in classic Scooby-Doo, that's where there's an unmasking, and we find out who the true villain is.
Are we giving that away? Do we say that on the show?
Well, we'll hold off on that.
Okay.
But and then because at that part, the final fight scene, unlike say the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies of today, is the shortest fight scene in the entire movie.
Yeah.
The climatic fight scene at the end is just boom, 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 and then Santo has.
And we should say also this is a tight 80-minute movie here, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of this stuff has happened within 80 minutes.
And then Santo has they ask why this guy was doing it, and Santo has a great speech about when men play gods,
So to me, those they happen in a couple of these movies. That to me is a Jack Webb speech, because Jack Webb always summed up Dragnet with that at the end. He had a little morality lesson, and so they cut to El Santo, his Sergeant Friday, and go like, why would he do such a thing? And he says, when evil men defy God's laws, they will fall victim to their own wicked ways or something like that. Like definitely defy God's laws comes in there. It just like he preaches for a second and then he's like, and I'm out of here, and I'll see you. Like I don't think he says goodbye. He just goes like, bad dudes when they defy God's law, they're gonna get bit by their own snake later, and he just walks out the door, just cuts up a staircase.
The unknown hero, the man with no name, who was that masked man, and he's instead of a horse named Silver, he's got a mask made of silver.
Absolutely, yeah. And then a really bad composite shot of the edges of the cliff walls and the staircase that keep wobbling out of registration with each other.
The first time we saw that shot, it wasn't like that. It's like they realized, we should do that shot again, but we can't get in there. We'll fake it with this.
Some really bad mat work, but but it's charming that it ends on that kind of school play look to it. I thought.
No, the whole movie itself is as charming as a good way to describe it. I mean, from the zombies really not looking like zombies to orphans being threatened to jewelry heist, magic telephone video screens to talk to the chief of police. The whole thing it's a charming superhero movie is what it is.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the cool thing about this is like, even though this is the first feature role for El Santo, he's fully formed. There is no origin story on El Santo, and it doesn't matter. Like that's the thing about like the real identities, the origin stories. They don't matter. All that matters is they're here now doing the right thing.
Exactly. That may be the best thing about this movie is there's no origins, and as far as I know, there is no origins movie of El Santo.
Not as far as I know. I mean, unless they do like a biopic on him, in which case, like I don't need to. I mean, the guy was 17 when he started wrestling. Like, how much origin did he really have?
Yeah.
17 years. Yeah, but I mean, who knows? It might be terribly important to who he was as a person. I mean, but yeah, you kind of almost, it just deals in such broad strokes of tropes that you kind of don't like, it leans hard into like the melodrama of like a telenovela that you don't really need to know like too much about like her relationship with her father or like her relationship with her uncle. Like those are all just hinted at because those tropes. Like there's like a good comic book. Like you fill in the space between the panels. Like and you can absolutely do it. Again, like you barely need to know how to speak Spanish to watch this movie. Like it's dealing in kind of classical archetypes in a big way.
Yeah, Michael and I discussed this when we watched the Santo Blue Demon versus the Monsters movie. They sounded as if they had met that villain before.
Oh, nice.
And we're like, is this a sequel? And it's not a sequel. It's just, it's a sequel to a movie that was never made, right, Mike?
Yeah, they're referencing things that have happened, that they've shared history together. And I completely thought that, this is my first Lucha Libre movie. I've obviously have not, seen everything. Yeah. This must be a reference to another movie in the past. No.
All right, so Gonzo, Michael and I, we rate these movies on a scale of gold mask 1 to 5.
Okay. Man.
Gonna ask you first what you would give this film.
I'm gonna say, can you do half masks or no? Just full masks?
We've said full mask is what we said at the President's with the first, because then we can average between the three of us what the final score would be.
All right, I'm going to go with 4 gold masks on this one. Yeah, it is near perfect, but it does have a couple of... this gets sorted out in other... I mean, maybe it's unfair of me to compare it to other movies of El Santos, but they definitely... this is almost a home run, this is almost a walk-off home run, but it just barely hit the top of the wall, and so now it has to be a triple, it's kind of that, so there was just like a couple of little, and I love everything about it, but there are a couple of little, there's some fat on this that gets trimmed in later movies and stuff, so, 4 for me.
Well, how about you, Michael?
Yes, I gave the last 2 4s. I was going to try to be a little bit tougher on this one and give it 3, but Gonzo's enthusiasm has put another mask on it for me. So I just really enjoyed listening to you talk about it. So 4 stars for me too.
All right, I'm going to be the villain here, and I'm only going to give it 3. I've set this one kind of as my barometer for other. I've seen other El Santo movies, but since this is the first one, I'm going to make this one the barometer. Put it right in the middle. Because I mean the other one, I think I gave versus Monsters. I think I gave that one 3 as well. But I've seen when he fought Frankenstein's daughter. I really like that one.
Oh yeah. That's good stuff.
So and the only other movie we've reviewed so far was Hurricane Ramirez, which I freaking love that movie.
Yeah, those are. I mean, and then Hurricane Ramirez is that weird case where they created the character for the movies. And then he began to wrestle as that character, so that, it was kind of promo for the movies, and then he just became a legitimate character.
It's so unlike the other movies. It's just so.
Yeah. That's movies tackling lucha libre as opposed to luchadors trying to make a movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
But so it's a much different animal. I heard a really fun story from Sergio Aragones about Hurricane Ramirez. That's, I don't know, man. It might not be my story to tell. I don't know. You guys interested? You want to hear the story?
Yeah, no, I'd love any Sergio Aragones story.
So I guess Sergio Aragones' father had some connection to Lucha Libre. He knew, or maybe the film industry, but he had some backstage access to a show that Hurricane Ramirez was going to be wrestling at. And so Sergio was a kid, and he was really into wrestling, and he's like, oh, fantastic, I'm going to go check this Hurricane Ramirez show out. It's going to be great, this wrestling match. And so, and I should say too, this happened at a convention where Sergio saw my table and then came over and asked me if he could tell me a wrestling story. And I'm like, Sergio, nice. You can tell me whatever. You can read the phone book to me, dude.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, definitely. So he goes to see the match, and he's there. He's kind of ringside. He's got backstage access to the whole thing. And the match gets all set up. They introduce everyone in this corner and that corner. They do everything. They go, and I guess the match, they do lock up. They kind of back away. The Rudo in that match kicks Hurricane Ramirez in the junk. He goes down. Rudo's disqualified. Match is over. They bring a stretcher in. They run Hurricane Ramirez off into the in the locker room, and Sergio and his dad go with him. And they get back in the locker room, and Hurricane Ramirez pops up like looks at his watch, puts on a jacket, and bails because apparently he had to shoot some movie that night, but he still had obligations to be at that show. So they worked this angle out so he could just go take a nut shot, still be, he didn't lose the match because it was a disqualification. The fans got to see something fun happen, but he had to bail to go make like his shooting schedule and take off. And he's like, Sergio was like, it was all ruined for me. Like I thought he'd really taken a shot to the nuts and all this stuff. Yeah. So
I thought you were going to give me like a story where Sergio was crying like Ricky Schroeder in The Champ.
Oh, no, not at all. He got to see kayfabe, like, he got to see a bullshit match, and he got to see, like, kayfabe shattered in front of his eyes for Hollywood bullshit, all happened all at the same time. So, yeah. It was a real inflection point for Sergio Aragonés in his interactions with Lucha Libre. But yeah, that was the Hurricane. So every time I think about Hurricane Ramirez, I think about that match where he just took a shot to the junk, and that was it. That was the entire match.
Okay, well, bonus added shot in the junk story. Appreciate that. Gonzo, thank you so much for being our first guest. Thank you for your enthusiasm. Thank you for your enlightenment. We're definitely going to have you on again down the road.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm totally down for this. This was great.
Plug away. Give everybody where you're at and where the book is, what the book is, and how they can get it, and also where they can find you.
Okay, so the book is La Mano del Destino. It's The Hand of Destiny in Spanish. Literally, it's available anywhere books are sold. I would appreciate if people went to comic shops to buy them. If you don't have a local comic shop, you can get them on Comixology. I think Discount Comic Book Services also has them. But also Amazon, Target, Walmart, all of those, Barnes & Noble. You can get it all of there. So anywhere, just look up, La Mano del Destino, click shopping. It'll come up if you can't get to a comic book shop. If you want to, follow me right now, my website and some stuff are in flux. So I'm just encouraging everyone to go to Instagram, which is just J Gonzo Art, the letter J Gonzo Art, all one word on Instagram. Follow me there. And then also a kind of part and parcel of what we're talking about today. So in the world of La Mano del Destino, the luchadors are famous. And so they do things like they have cartoons about them and they make movies and what have you. One of the things that now that La Mano is champion, spoiler alert, there's a comic strip about La Mano del Destino now, and I am now doing that comic strip on Instagram, and that is Destino_newspaper_strip on Instagram. And so I just started doing there's only 2 up now, but it is a newspaper, black and white newspaper strip of the adventures of La Mano, but they're done in a way that it's a fictionalized version of him within his own fictional universe. So it's like metafiction. So it's going to be different than the main story that's in the comic where he's going to fight like mad scientists and jewelry thieves and all of this stuff. Like that's all going to happen in the comic strip, but it's also the comic strip that he can read. So when the next series of comic book comes out, he's going to actually address people having this notion of him based on the comic strip version and not on him as an actual person. So, so you can check out the La Mano del Destino newspaper strip on Instagram as well. And then I'm also going to do some comic book adaptations of movies that he's made within his universe coming up soon as well.
Nice. I love that. I was going to ask you, are we going to get more of him?
Yeah. So I should say too, and then if you follow me on Instagram, I don't know that I can announce it soon. I just got the email about it, so I'm gonna. I have to sign some paperwork. There's going to be another series of La Mano del Destino. Next new series coming out. Your ability to pre-order it is going to start in August. So start following me. Keep your eyes open, and I will have more announcements about that. But the next 6-issue miniseries is going to start in earnest in August.
All right, perfect. That's wonderful. And of course, we'll plug the hell out of it as well.
I appreciate that.
All right, Michael, anything you need to wrap up here?
No, man, it's been a joy. I've just been kind of quiet and enjoying Gonzo, so this has been great.
Yeah, you got the night off. You just got to hang out in the corner.
Yeah, I talk a lot, guys. I'm sorry.
No,
we appreciate it. No, thank you so much. I'm going to send you an email because I'm going to need to get your shipping address because, like any good show, we've got wonderful parting gifts.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome. Yeah. You shoot me that email. I'll get right back with you.
All right. Thanks a lot. And until next time, muchas gracias.